In the depths of my toxic relationship, as I was going through the most painful parts of narcissistic abuse, I kind of went numb, right? I didn't seem like I was functioning like a regular person. I did what I had to do. I did the bare minimum to get by. I almost felt kind of robotic. When I finally got the nerve to leave, and I did it, which I was really proud of myself for, I thought, oh, everything's going to change. My life's about to get a whole lot better. I really tried to sort of act as if, as a lot of these law of attraction coaches will tell you to do. Act as if, and then you will be that, right? Well, that didn't work for me because just under the surface, there was this like anxiety bubbling up all the time. This was related to the idea of socializing and going out in public. I stopped taking care of myself in certain ways as a result of this stress and anxiety and kind of depression that I was going through as I was trying to figure out what had just happened to me and what my life was going to be now, because all of a sudden I was a scared to death single mom, 23 years old. I didn't know what to do with myself. And I did shower every day, but only because I didn't want people to talk about me at work, because I had no choice but to have a job. I had a small child to take care of, I had to support him and whatnot. I would only put on clean clothes because I had to go to work, and again, I didn't want people to talk about me because social anxiety, right? I stopped wearing makeup. I stopped caring about the way I looked, except for I just made sure I was clean. That's it. That's very unlike me if you know me as a person today or any other part of my life. I've always been, the sort of person that does her hair and makeup before she goes out in public at the very least, but I didn't for a while there. Now, during that time when it was the weekend, and this actually continued for a long time, on the weekends I would do anything I could to avoid leaving the house. I made sure I did my grocery shopping during the week. I made sure I had everything I needed in the house so I didn't have to leave. So I didn't shower over the weekends. I didn't get dressed. I didn't even want to get out of bed, if I'm being honest. I felt like what I was going through, going to work, shopping for groceries, taking care of this kid, taking him to daycare, doing all the things I had to do. My gosh, I thought, oh, I need a break. I just need a break. And so I would just do nothing on the weekends. And essentially, if I could avoid leaving the house, I did. I only left the house if I had no choice on the weekends. And I thought, I'm taking care of myself by doing this. This is what I need right now. And in some ways it was what I needed right then. But what I was doing wrong was I was avoiding all the social situations I had an opportunity to be part of. If I wasn't forced to be there, I wouldn't be there. If I'm being honest, if I didn't need to pay the bills for that child, I most likely would have done anything in my power to just stay home all the time. I didn't want to leave the house. I found myself thinking stuff like, I wish I never had to leave the house. Why do I have to have a job outside the house? Of course, this is before I started my business. This is many years ago. I didn't want to get out of bed. Didn't know what to do. I was asking myself stuff like, am I just lazy? How do I stop being lazy and start trying to live again? What the heck is wrong with me? I couldn't figure it out. And I wonder, can you relate to this? Because if you can, obviously, you're not alone. I've been there, and so have a lot of other survivors of narcissistic abuse. We feel just like that when we leave a toxic relationship, but we often don't know why. And then, of course, those of us who are still in that relationship very often feel just like that as well. For me, I kind of went numb, but if I'm thinking back and being honest with you in hindsight, I didn't want to leave the house much then either. I only did because I would have to go and buy things for the house, and I worked a part-time job, and that was it. So I felt really stuck. During the relationship, it was related partially to being stuck, but partially also to not wanting to explain to anyone what I was going through. And so I would avoid my friends, I would avoid family members, I would avoid everyone who might be able to see what I was going through or see that something was wrong, because I didn't want to explain myself. You understand? My question, and I think your question then became, what causes this? Is this agoraphobia? Is this something else? What could this be? When you're abused by a toxic narcissist, you might find yourself feeling overwhelmed just by the idea of leaving the house or doing anything at all. But the thing is that contrary to popular belief, this doesn't mean you have agoraphobia or any other mental illness. And I want you to really hear me on this. The depression that you're going through that makes you feel stuck can be caused, and the anxiety can be caused directly by the narcissistic abuse that you experienced and by the stress of going through recovery and separating from that person and all that stuff. Not to mention the anxiety and the general adrenal stress that comes along with all of that. Even the most basic stuff like going to the grocery store can feel incredibly overwhelming, and you might find that you prefer to be alone a lot of the time. I know I did. I still like to be alone a little bit. I mean, I need an hour a day at least of completely just by myself time, where nobody's talking to me or needing anything from me, you know what I'm saying? But that is self-care. Staying inside and never leaving the house is not really that healthy. But who could blame you for feeling that way? I mean, I couldn't blame myself even back then, because it is incredibly exhausting, mentally, physically, and otherwise, to deal with narcissistic abuse and to deal with anyone who has suspected NPD or anyone who we believe might be a toxic person. So someone who lives with us, doesn't show us any empathy, treats us like we're worthless, And then leaving that person is a whole other kind of stress. You know, they say things like divorce can be more stressful for you than someone in your life dying. And so throw a toxic relationship on top of that, trauma bonding, all that stuff, whew, you're in one heck of a cocktail. Recovery has so many of its own challenges that we often stay stuck in these negative patterns unless we intentionally choose to start to work through it and get out of there, you know, move forward out of those negative patterns. But with all that being said, I think it's really important that we define agoraphobia really quickly. So the official definition is a type of anxiety disorder in which you fear and often avoid places or situations that might cause you to panic and make you feel trapped, helpless, or embarrassed. Other definitions I read said things like fear of having a panic attack in public, etc., etc. But again, agoraphobia does not always mean that you're not able to leave the house. There are agoraphobics who are diagnosed who do leave the house, but the not leaving the house part can be a complication of extreme symptoms, including anxiety and stuff like this, of agoraphobia, right? When we're talking about people who are on the more extreme end. And I remember I met one lady who had agoraphobia when I was a child. She was the wife of someone that we went to visit. They had a pool in the backyard and it was really nice, and she cooked us a really nice dinner, but she couldn't even go out and join us on the deck of the pool, which was right outside her back door, because she was that agoraphobic. And that was just, I felt so sorry for her, but I didn't fully understand why she was like that. I still don't actually know her particular reasons, because as far as I could tell, she was in a pretty healthy relationship. But then again, I was a child, so how do I know? But you might have other anxiety disorders related to your toxic relationship, you know, as opposed to agoraphobia, such as social anxiety disorder, which is very common, generalized anxiety disorder, and more. And I want to just point out, social anxiety disorder is a known side effect of CPTSD, which a lot of us, whether we're diagnosed or not, might have, right? We have symptoms of that. So that's possible. But before we continue, I just want to say this. If you are experiencing symptoms of panic attacks or agoraphobia or social anxiety disorder or anything else, the right thing to do is to first find a doctor to make sure that there aren't any other medical problems involved. Make sure you go see a professional doctor, medical professional. Then check in, once you're cleared there, check in with a mental health professional, a therapist or psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever, to get a diagnosis and start treatment if necessary. And then if you are diagnosed, take the time to learn everything you can about your own disorder, because you might be surprised at some of the self-help things you can do. With all that being said, whether it is about depression, anxiety, or just plain old exhaustion, or it's something else, it's agoraphobia, it's whatever, there are certain self-help things that you might want to do that can help you to start to get moving. And if it is not yet to the point of agoraphobia, well, maybe this is a way you can start to change that and kind of move in a different direction. So what do you do if you can't leave the house anymore? If you're feeling depressed, tired, stuck, or just unmotivated or whatever, start here. I'm going to give you some tips, okay? First thing you need to remember is that these issues, along with a number of other factors, will cause you to not want to leave the house, the things we've just discussed, or can. And there are a lot of things, like I said, self-help that you can do. So in the short term, you can try things like pattern interrupts. And if you don't know what pattern interrupts are, I'll give you a couple. And then you can go, after this video, you can go YouTube search and type Angie Atkinson pattern interrupt. And you'll see a video called When the Going Gets Tough, the Tough Use NLP or something like that. And what it is pattern interrupts. So stuff like if you're in the middle of a mess and you're stressed out and you don't know what to do and you don't want to leave, or if you are already out and you start to panic, one really good thing you can say, find all the pink things in a room, or all the orange things, or whatever, all the things of one color, count them. Or maybe you can take a deep breath and walk into a different part of the house, or walk into a different part of the store, wherever you're at. Or you can, if you're still home, you can brush your teeth, brush your hair, take a quick shower, go for a walk, whatever. Change your environment a little bit. Those are good pattern interrupts. And baby steps, always helpful for moving in the right direction. I've got a few other things for you. So the first tip is to meditate and get calm before you leave the house. Whatever meditation looks like for you. Like for me, it's more like moving and hearing music at the same time, walking or whatever. That's how I clear my head. Clear your head is my point. Whatever that works. Sometimes you sit down and you do the Om thing, whatever it is for you, do that. Number 2, give yourself plenty of time to get ready. Don't rush, because that's stressful. And make sure that you feel good about how you look, or at least that you're okay with how you look, because it'll be one less thing you have to worry about when you're out in public. Number 3, try listening to upbeat, happy music before you leave. Personally, I love the sassy songs, and they really help me feel empowered sometimes. Now this list has a lot of other songs added by other people, but my original happy playlist is called Good Morning Beautiful, and it has a bunch of songs on it that I put on it, but there are now new songs added to it. I guess other survivors have added songs to it. You can see that at queenbeing.com/playlist if you're ever interested in what songs I like, and apparently some other survivors like. But maybe you'd rather do calming and relaxing songs. Either way is okay. Just do what feels right to you. Music is very powerful for changing the way we feel. For me, it's great for, getting me in the right kind of state of mind for stuff like this. Just do what feels right to you. Number 4, take some time to think about yourself, visualize yourself being successful in your social interactions. So if you are let's say you're gonna go to a work function, a work party, and you're stressed out about it, you're feeling anxious about it, it's gonna be terrible, everybody's gonna look at me, everything's gonna be crazy. Instead of that, change your mind, clear that out of your head, and try to think about what would happen if you were successful at this function. What would happen if you went to the club or you went to the grocery store even, and it was successful. Imagine yourself being successful in your social interactions. Visualize it. That can really help. And then number 5, prepare stuff to say. Know how you're going to greet people. Have a few casual conversation ideas in mind. You can find some good ideas by checking out the news or just figuring out some other topics that, depending on where you're going, maybe it's a work thing, you talk about work stuff, maybe it's a PTA thing, you're talking about the kids, whatever. Think about a few topics ahead of time that aren't super touchy, that you don't want any conflict, but topics that will help you to kind of just get the conversation flowing and that are easy to discuss. However, if you feel like you're at a loss and you don't know what to say to people, ask them about themselves or their kids or their lives, because everybody likes to talk about themselves. And as an added benefit to this, the people who you're talking to and you're asking questions to, they will automatically feel a little warmer toward you if you ask them questions about themselves and you actually listen to the answers, and that'll make the conversation flow easier as well. If you don't have anywhere to go, let's say that outside of going to the grocery store, you don't know where else to go and you don't even want to go anywhere anyway. Well, I've got a few suggestions for that as well. First of all, you could try a part-time job if you don't already have a job. So, not only do we all need to eat, but nobody minds a little extra cash here and there. So you can make a few extra bucks, force yourself to get out of the house with a low-stress part-time job. So maybe if talking on the phone doesn't bother you, you work at a call center, although I'm not going to lie, that's probably a higher stress job than it sounds like. I worked at one in college. Woo, crazy. Or maybe you work at a grocery store or a local restaurant, whatever, something, unless you have some kind of a career that you're obviously already in, that's different. But if you're just looking for something to just kind of keep you busy, find something close to home, something that you don't mind doing. Maybe it's not the best job in the world, but you don't mind it. It's low stress, and it'll make you go out and talk to people. And that's just really a big part of getting past this. Another thing you can do, if you don't need to make a bunch of extra money for some reason, or if someone else is helping you, or you're independently wealthy or whatever, or you just want a little something extra, you can volunteer at an animal shelter or a nursing home or anything. In high school, I volunteered for an animal shelter and found it really fulfilling. I mostly worked with the cats. I love the cats. and it was a no-kill shelter, so I felt like it was ethically okay for me to work there. You know what I mean? I was cleaning the cages, and it wasn't bad. And I not only did I get to interact with animals that I loved, but I also got to meet a few other people who equally loved the animals. Do you know what I'm saying? And so that was really cool for me. And they were people who were older than me, but it was really cool. One of my clients, who was previously considered herself agoraphobic, she couldn't leave the house, she did the same thing. And today, this woman, I'm so incredibly proud of her. Girl, if you're watching, you know who you are. She has done such amazing things with herself, but one of the first things she did to get out of the house was she went and volunteered at an animal shelter. So if that's a thing for you, try it out, consider it. But another thing, if you're allergic to cats and dogs, or you're just not a pet person, like I said, go work at a nursing home, go volunteer at a nursing home, sit with people in the day room and hear their stories and hang out with the residents, because a lot of people in nursing homes get left there by their families. Families get busy. Even if they're very loved, they don't always see the people as much as they'd like to. And they just sometimes want to talk to someone new. And it would be a lower stress and lower, slower paced environment for you to practice in. If you feel nervous talking too much to people, you can always just, tell me about your life, tell me about this, or tell me about that. Listen to their stories, because I got to be honest with you, for me, listening to someone who has lived before me and who has stories that I can't relate to, or I shouldn't say can't relate to, stories of things that I haven't experienced, I find that incredibly fascinating. And I'm always interested in history anyway, but even if that person's just a little bit older than you, because I know a lot of times people in nursing homes are not ancient, so some of them are there for different reasons, health issues, whatever. You can learn new things from people of any age, and also you can make new friends and still do some good in the world at the same time. But another thing you can do is, if you can pass whatever whatever background checks, and I'm sure you'll have to pass background checks to volunteer at the nursing home as well, I think. I don't know. But I know you would if you like volunteered at a preschool or something. My kids, they all went to a private preschool. A church ran it, but it was like the best one in town, and they had to be on a waiting list to get into it and everything. And I know that some people would volunteer there. They had to go through a background check, of course, to make sure they were not bad people. But they went there and volunteered and hung out with the kids and, you know, would take them, do little activities with them and stuff like that. And that's really good for you as well if that's something that interests you. Number 3, you can join a meetup group at meetup.com or anything else, you know, any other local group doing something that you love to do. Maybe you want to play volleyball or you want to do paint and sip or whatever. Join a group that's doing that stuff. Not only can you meet new people, but you'll do something you enjoy, and it might be more of an enticement for you to get out of the house because you're going to do something fun that you love to do. Number 4, go have coffee with a friend or go have dinner. If you have a friend or a neighbor or someone, even if it's just kind of an acquaintance, invite them out. Hey, you know, there's a new coffee shop. Do you want to go try that? Or even, you know, I'm not a big drinker myself, but if you are, you know, if you don't mind, I don't mind having a drink sometimes. But if you want to have a drink or whatever, you can go, you know, invite your friend to go have a drink. And again, keep this platonic for now, because unless you're already to the point where you're ready to date, it could just cause you more stress if you jump into a relationship too fast. So keep that in mind. And number 5, walk your dog at the, you know, a dog park or just around your neighborhood even, or join a gym. Anything like that where you're kind of getting out of your house to do some physical activity. And I know a lot of times if you walk your dog in a dog park, not every town has a dog park, so you might just be in your neighborhood, but people walk dogs, and if you're walking your dog and you see another dog person, you can say, hey. Even that much can help you to feel just a little bit less alone in the world and to feel like you've done something productive. And of course, your dog will thank you. Or if you're not a dog person, join the gym, you know, or a class, you know, maybe a ballet class. Do they have those for adults? Or an exercise class, or one of those personal training groups that you meet in the park and you guys run and do all the things, whatever it is. So those are some ideas, which brings me to the question of the day. The question of the day is, what would you add to this list? Tell me in the comments, what kinds of tips do you have if you have experienced agoraphobia? What kinds of tips do you have that would help you, or I shouldn't call it agoraphobia, if you've experienced not being able to leave the house, whether it was because of agoraphobia or anxiety or whatever it was, social anxiety, depression, what got you out of the house if you've done this before? And if you haven't, what are your struggles? Let me know and let's talk about it. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. Now, before I go, make sure you take a look at the videos I'm leaving for you here and there. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue on this healing journey together. I'll see you soon.